Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Kev's Movie Corner. I am Kev. This week we are talking about The Wild Bunch. This movie was released 1969. It has a runtime of 2 hours and 15 minutes. Ish. We'll get into that in a minute. Because that's not... It's accurate-ish. Anyway, a brief summary from IMDb. An aging group of outlaws in 1913 Texas look for one last big score, selling stolen army rifles to a rogue Mexican general during that country's revolution, as the traditional American West is disappearing around them. This is a Western, as you might be able to gather from that. Action, adventure, drama, whatever. Stars William Holden, Ernest, Borgnine, Robert Ryan, and Edmond O'Brien. This was a pretty good movie. I'm not a big Western fan in general, although some of these that I have watched, I have actually enjoyed. I didn't used to. I don't know if I'm changing as I get older, or if I just... I don't know. I don't know really how to say that, but I am enjoying some of these as I've watched them, because I liked, was it Unforgiven? With Clint Eastwood and Morgan Freeman that we watched a few weeks ago. But yeah, anyway, this was a pretty good movie. It starts with a group of outlaws riding into town dressed as soldiers, trying to rob a railroad. Not trying to rob a train, trying to rob a railroad. Like a railroad office, which was interesting. And they get, they're led by Pike, which is William Holden's character. And he's got his crew. And they end up getting into a gunfight with a group of hired bounty hunters that are hired by the railroad to stop them, because they've apparently, you learn pretty quick that they've been a problem for the railroad. So there's been a group of bounty hunters hired by the railroad that are being led by one of Pike's former cohorts, one of his former coworkers, one of the guys who used to work with him, who also used to be like a outlaw, who went to prison, and is basically being hired to do this so that he gets out, so that he stays out of prison, or doesn't have to go back to prison. And that's how one of the leader of the railroad keeps threatening him that he'll send him back to prison, actually, in this, if he doesn't follow through. They get into a big gun battle, kill a bunch of people, 22 people to be exact, according to one of our little trivia things that I saw in here, including a bunch of random people in the town that get caught up in the gunfire. And the outlaws ride off. Some of them make it, some of them don't. And the bounty hunters are basically a bunch of morons. Can't do hardly anything except for the main guy, Thornton. He's the only one that has any brains about him, really. The other ones are kind of just, he calls them gutter trash, but they're kind of just idiots. But the outlaws ride off. They end up fleeing into Mexico to get away. And they when they stop, they find out that it was all a setup, and they don't actually have any silver that they were hoping to steal, but a bunch of metal washers that are worth nothing. So, excuse me, they go farther into Mexico, following one of their other members, one of their younger members, Angel, and they follow him to his hometown, and he shows disdain for Apache, who is a general who is works or is a general in the Mexican Federal Army, but is kind of fighting against his own people almost. Kind of trying to take over almost is what it seems like. But anyway, he's kind of taking over towns. He's stealing food. He's killing people and just kind of basically a terrorist in his own country. But they decide that they learn that he's not doing well, so they decide to go find him. And he offers them gold to go and steal guns from the U.S. military, from a train that is shipping guns from the U.S. Army, for the U.S. Army. They decide that this is going to be their last little hurrah, because they're all getting old and they can't really do this anymore. And they go to rob the train. They go to rob the ammunition, the weapons, and everything from the train. And who's there but Thornton and his little posse of bounty hunters, along with a bunch of new recruits for the U.S. Army. Thornton chases the outlaws. They do get away. They end up making it to Mexico and selling the guns back to Apache, who they realize very quickly that he's just going to try to kill them, so they sell him the guns back in small amounts so that they can get the money, and he won't just kill them and steal all the weapons. He ends up finding out that Angel stole a case of guns, and beats him almost to death. Before, towards the end, the crew kind of leaves him there before coming back to get him, to save him. And when Apache cuts his throat, they shoot and kill him, which starts another massive gun battle. They shoot and kill the general. And then that starts a gun battle between all the other soldiers and them, which almost everybody dies before the Thornton and the bounty hunters show up and kind of pull all the weapons and the bodies and take them back to the railroad for the bounty, except Thornton, who ends up riding off to join the revolution against the Mexican army. So that's about it. It's a lot that happens, but it's not a ton that happens. Does that make sense? It's a lot that happens, but it's not a ton. And that sounds terrible. I'm terrible at this, so that's just the way it is. Anyway, it was a good movie. The gun battle scenes were kind of long. I will say they seemed kind of long. The first one was only 5 minutes. I learned when reading up on this afterwards. It seems like it's like 15 minutes long. They both seem really long, but they're not, apparently. The The second gun battle scene, 145 people are dead, according to the trivia that I found. 22 people died in the first one, 145 people died in the second one, which is interesting. But this movie was nominated for 2 Academy Awards, Best Original Screenplay and Best Score. It did not win either one of them. It was inducted into the Library of Congress in 1999. It is currently... excuse me again. It is currently in talks of being remade. In 2018, it was announced that Mel Gibson would co-write and direct a new version of the movie. In 2013, there was reports that Will Smith would star and produce the new version. So there's been a few different things going on with that. I don't know where it is currently. That's the latest of what Wikipedia says. So take whatever you want to from that. This movie was mostly shot on set in Mexico. It had at the time when it was filmed more cuts than any other Technicolor film ever made. So like when they cut the film together, a lot of them are so short that you can't even tell, because they're so small that you can't even tell, which I thought was interesting. Like they're like 3 or 4 frames, which is interesting that they would even cut that, but whatever. Couple of interesting facts I found about this. Robert Ryan, who played Thornton, which was the head bounty hunter, he was so, I guess, annoying to the director about having top billing on the film that during the opening credits, when you watch the opening credits, they'll show people writing in, and then they'll freeze it, and they'll freeze it on the person, and they'll show their name, and then they'll show a little bit more video, and then they'll freeze it and show a name. So you have William Holden, Ernest, Borgnine, and it shows their name, and it lists their name. So the director decided, because he was so annoyed by Ryan, that when he froze the scene to put Ryan's name up, he froze it on a horse's ass, which is funny. That's just a comical, like, hey, you know what? You're gonna be this annoying. We're just gonna do this to you. That's just comical. Let's see here. Apparently, the director was also, which is Peckinpah? Peckinpah? Sam Peckinpah? I guess that's how you pronounce that. He kind of overhauled the way Warner Brothers did gun battles in this movie. Before, all Warner Brothers movies had the same sound effect for guns. No matter what gun was being fired, they had the same sound effect. He wanted different sound effects, so almost all the guns have different sound effects. He did not like the way it was originally done, so they made a bunch of changes. They made a bunch of different sound effects and did that, which is interesting. All the train robbery scenes the train robbery scene was actually not scripted. It was all done improvised, and the Mexicans, the gun battle at the end, the Mexican soldiers in the gun battle at the end were actual Mexican soldiers that were hired as extras to be in that battle at the end of the movie, which is kind of cool. So, yeah, that's some interesting little facts about this. Oh, I said we would come back to the time. So this movie, IMDb says it's an hour or 2 hours and 15 minutes. So when I watched it, it said it was 2 hours and 25 minutes. So at some point, when it was re-released. Let's see here what it was. So the original was released in 1969. I said that. It's 145 minutes long, which is 2 hours and 15 minutes. It was released again in 1993 to have an additional 10 minutes that had been cut out, or sorry. In 1995. It was released again in 1995 to have 10 minutes restored that had been cut out originally. One reviewer who saw it said that it made it flow better. So I don't know why the 10 minutes was cut out originally. It also says that the 10 minutes, so the movie's rated R. When the 10 minutes was put back in, it was given an NC-17 rating, which means you have to be 17 to watch it. Because a rated R, you just have to be 17 or with an adult to watch it. You have to have approval from an adult to watch it. I don't know. It says that there wasn't anything there wasn't any graphic violence or anything in the extra 10 minutes, so I don't know why it would have gotten a higher rating for that extra time or whatever was in that. But yeah, for some reason, there was an extra 10 minutes added in the 90s or re-added in the 90s that put it up to that 2 hours and 25. So it's about 2.5 hours long. But it doesn't really seem that long. It went by relatively quickly. I did not feel like it was an overly long movie. I thought it moved relatively quickly. I thought it was fun to watch. It's pretty action packed. There's a couple of, like I said, there's some of like the first gun battle definitely felt long. The second gun battle, it is longish, but it didn't feel. I didn't feel like it felt as long as the first one. But maybe that's just because it's there's other stuff going on towards the end or something. There's more going on during it, but I don't know. Anyway, that I think is it for this week, folks. I hope you guys enjoyed that movie. I hope you guys. This is a terrible review of this, so I don't do very well at these, but it is what it is. Next week we're watching The Apartment from 1960. So if you want to watch that, come back and watch this. If you don't want to watch that, then come back and watch this, because this will be a whole lot shorter than that movie will be, I'm sure. And it'll be a whole lot, it's probably not going to give you a ton of information about that movie either, so you may still have to go watch the movie. But anyway, don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and I will talk to you guys next week.